3 days before my brother's grand opening, my mother slid an order sheet across the counter of the stall she had taken from me. It called for 80 hand-tied bouquets, 12 buckets of greenery, and a flower arch by sunrise Saturday. Behind her, my green enamel sign had been removed from the oak post where it had hung for 10 years. My brother's new logo covered the screw holes. Mom tapped the total line and said, "Leave the price blank. This is family." She had already given him my corner, advertised the opening, and told the market board I had chosen to leave. Now, she expected my farm to make his theft look beautiful. What she did not know was that the permit in my bag still named me as the legal vendor for stall 12. The renewal fee had cleared 6 weeks earlier. She had promised my brother a place that was never hers to give, and by Saturday morning, everyone she had invited would know it. Before I tell you how a flower stand became the line my family finally could not move, tell me what you would have done. Would you have supplied the flowers to keep the peace, or let the empty buckets tell the truth? My name is Marissa Hale. I was 35 that spring, and I had spent most of my life waking before dawn for work nobody in my family considered real until they needed it. I grew flowers on 11 rented acres outside Bellwether, Oregon, a river town with 1 old brick market hall, 2 traffic lights, and more opinions than parking spaces. The market sat at the end of Maple Street beside the railroad tracks. It had arched windows, a patched copper roof, and a freight door that groaned in wet weather. On Saturdays, the building smelled like coffee, bread, damp wool, apples, and whatever flowers I had cut before sunrise. That smell was home to me long before the place became valuable. My parents, Linda and Dale Hale, sold produce there. Hale Family Produce had occupied the wide center stall since before I was born. Dad grew sweet corn, squash, and tomatoes on land my grandfather had leased from the county. Mom handled money, signs, customer complaints, committee meetings, and every conversation in which a person might be persuaded to do something her way. My younger brother, Evan, handled being admired. He was 4 years younger than me, quick with names, good in photographs, and able to make a new idea sound like a future everyone else had been foolish not to see. When he was a child, adults called him creative. When I was a child, they called me dependable. Those words sounded equally kind until I learned which child got opportunities and which child got handed a key. At 13, I opened the market with Dad every Saturday. At 16, I could stack a produce display so the bruised peaches sold first without looking bruised. At 18, I knew which restaurant owners paid on time, which vendors borrowed change, and exactly how long Mom could smile before a disagreement became an order. Evan came when he felt like it. He painted 1 chalkboard menu, drew a tomato wearing sunglasses, and heard about his talent for years. I balanced the cash box through 2 holiday rushes and got told, "That is why we never have to worry about you." For a long time, I accepted that as love. I did not begin with a flower farm. I began with a row of zinnias behind the produce shed because I was tired of looking at black plastic and broken pallets. I planted them from a packet that cost less than lunch. By August, customers were asking whether the flowers were for sale. Mom said no at first. Flowers wilted. Flowers made mess. Flowers took up space that could hold onions. Then a bride came through the market and bought every stem in the bucket for her backyard wedding. Mom watched me count the cash and changed her answer. "You can sell them," she said, "just do not let it interfere with the produce." That sentence became the rule for the next 7 years. I could build something as long as nobody had to admit I was building it. I studied horticulture at the community college 40 minutes away. I took night classes after market days and worked at a wholesale nursery during the week. I learned soil chemistry, irrigation, how to keep cut stems fresh, and the quiet arithmetic of betting a season on weather. Evan left for a private design school in California. My parents paid his rent for the first year because, as Mom said, creative people needed room to become themselves. I paid my tuition from nursery wages and Saturday sales. Dad helped me build my first cooler from insulated panels left over from a dairy project. Mom let me keep 6 buckets at the edge of the family stall, but she rang up the sales through her register and called the money extra market income. The first time I asked for separate accounting, she looked hurt. "We are one family business," she said. "The flowers are mine. And the customers are ours." I was 23, tired, and still trained to believe that disagreement was ingratitude. I let it go. That mistake cost me almost 2 years of knowing whether my work earned anything at all. The change came when the market cooperative announced that stall 12 was available. It was a narrow corner beside the old freight door, too cold in winter and too hot in late summer. Vendors avoided it because rain blew under the threshold, and the electrical outlet worked only when someone kicked the baseboard. I wanted it immediately. Mom laughed when I told her, "For flowers. For my business. You have 6 buckets here. I need a stall." Dad stared at the floor. Evan was home between semesters and sketching logos for a class. He did not look up when he said, "You should call it something other than Marissa's Flowers. That sounds like a roadside honor box." I had not asked him. I applied through the cooperative anyway. The market hall belonged to the city, but each vendor signed an individual occupancy agreement with the merchants' cooperative. A vendor paid an annual fee, carried insurance, and kept the assigned space active for at least 30 market days a year. Committee chairs could recommend placements. They could not own them, trade them, or hand them to relatives. Mom knew that. She had helped write the rule. The cooperative approved me for a 1-year trial, and I used almost every dollar I had saved to repair the stall while Dad replaced the outlet. I sealed the freight door, installed narrow shelves, and built a wooden counter from old fir planks. I painted the walls soft white so the flowers looked brighter on dark mornings. A retired sign painter named Arthur Bell made my plaque. It was green enamel with cream lettering and a thin gold border. Wild Acre Flowers curved across the top. Marissa Hale sat below it in smaller letters. At the bottom, in the space where a phone number might have gone, he painted stall 12. Arthur refused to let me pay full price. "A sign should outlast the person who doubts it," he told me. I screwed it into the oak post myself. The first winter was terrible. The freight door still leaked. My fingers went numb tying bouquets. I sold evergreen wreaths to cover the fee and delivered restaurant arrangements after closing. Some Saturdays, I earned less than the coffee vendor, but every sale still went through my register, and every invoice carried my name. Every decision was mine. That mattered more than profit at first. By the 3rd year, Wild Acre Flowers was no longer 6 buckets beside my parents' onions. I leased 3 acres from a retired pear grower, then 6, then 11. I supplied 2 restaurants, a small hotel, and enough weddings to hire seasonal help. Stall 12 became one of the busiest corners in the market because people followed the flowers. Mom began referring to it as our floral side. I corrected her every time. "My floral business." She would smile as if I had made a joke. Evan's path was louder. He finished design school, joined a branding agency, moved to Seattle, left the agency, launched a candle company, closed it, joined a furniture startup, and came home whenever one version of his life stopped matching the picture he had sold everyone. I did not resent him for trying. I resented the landing pad. Each time Evan came back, Mom cleared space. Dad found work for him. I was told to be patient because he was rebuilding. When I needed help, they reminded me that I had always been resourceful. The clearest example happened the year a windstorm flattened one of my hoop houses. I called Dad because I needed 4 people to lift the frame before the metal twisted beyond repair. He said he would come after lunch. He never arrived. That evening, I learned Mom had sent him to help Evan photograph a rental house for an online listing. Evan wanted the light before sunset. I saved half the frame with 2 neighbors and lost the rest. Dad apologized, Mom did not. Evan had a deadline, she said. So did the weather. You always figure things out. That was the family compliment again. I finally heard the threat inside it. The market changed in my 8th year at Stall 12. A regional bakery opened across the tracks. The city improved the river walk, repaired the roof, and converted the abandoned freight office into a teaching kitchen. Suddenly, tourists came on Saturdays. Local magazines called the hall an authentic small-town destination, which was a polished way of saying the floor still sloped and the bathrooms were finally clean. The old freight door beside my stall became the new east entrance. What had been the worst corner in the building became the first thing visitors saw. My sales nearly doubled that season. Mom noticed before I did. She began stopping at my counter with suggestions. I should add candles. I should carry linen napkins. I should let Evan redesign my wrapping paper. I should replace the old plaque because the word stall sounded temporary. It has been there 10 years, I said. That is my point, you need to think bigger. I am thinking about flowers. That is not a brand strategy. No, it is a flower farm. She sighed the way she did when facts refused to become her idea. Evan moved back to Bellwether that November. He said Seattle had become expensive and impersonal. The furniture startup had been acquired, but his position had disappeared. He wanted to build something rooted in community. I understood the feeling. I had built exactly that. At Thanksgiving, he showed us a presentation on Dad's television. The title was Hale House Goods. The slides showed hand-thrown mugs, candles, cutting boards, aprons, dried flowers, and gift boxes tied with green ribbon. The final image was a polished rendering of a market stall, with an arched entrance and sunlight coming through old glass. It was my stall. He had removed my buckets and painted the walls dark green. The oak post remained, but my enamel plaque had been replaced by his logo. I looked at him. Why is that stall 12? Evan paused the presentation. It is just a concept. That is my counter. It is a mock-up, Marissa. You used a photograph of my space. Mom leaned forward, because it shows what is possible. For his business. For the family. There it was. The word family always appeared when someone needed access to something I had built alone. I asked Evan where he planned to operate. He glanced at Mom before answering. The market would be ideal. Which stall? We are exploring options. Not mine. He gave a short laugh. Nobody said yours. Mom did not say anything. That silence stayed with me. The next week, I found Evan measuring the wall behind my cooler. He held a laser measure in one hand and a notebook in the other. Mom stood by the freight door, pointing toward the ceiling. What are you doing? I asked. Evan lowered the measure, checking dimensions. For what? The market improvement proposal. I looked at Mom. What proposal? She stepped between us with the calm smile she used at committee meetings. We are considering a unified family section near the east entrance. Produce, home goods, flowers, it could benefit everyone. My stall is already unified. It contains my business. Do not be territorial. I pay for this space. And your father repaired it. 10 years ago, I paid him back. Dad had never asked to be paid, but I had transferred the money anyway. I had learned that unpaid family labor became a deed in Mom's imagination. Evan rolled the tape into his bag. I can work around your cooler. You are not working around anything in here. His face changed, not anger, embarrassment. He had believed the discussion was further along. I thought you knew, he said. Knew what? Mom answered for him. Nothing has been decided. I asked to see the proposal. She said it was not ready. I asked whether the cooperative board had discussed my stall. She said I was making a routine planning conversation adversarial. That night, I emailed Colleen Price, the market director. Colleen had managed the cooperative for 6 years. She knew every vendor agreement, every leaking pipe, and every argument over shared refrigerator space. I wrote one clear paragraph. I had not agreed to share, surrender, or relocate from stall 12. If any proposal suggested otherwise, it did not have my approval. An automatic reply came back. Colleen was away caring for her mother and would return in 3 weeks. Urgent matters should go to the executive committee. Mom chaired the executive committee. I forwarded the email to the full board anyway. No one replied. In January, annual renewal notices went out. Mine normally arrived by email and by mail because the cooperative had once lost a vendor's digital file. I received the email on a Monday morning. Stall 12, annual occupancy fee, proof of insurance due by the end of the month. I paid that afternoon. The confirmation showed my business name, my stall assignment, and the date the payment cleared. I saved the email, printed a copy for my farm office, and placed the paper original in the green accordion folder where I kept market records. The mailed notice never reached me. I did not think much about it. My business mailing address had been changed to the farm years earlier, but the cooperative still sent some board correspondence to my parents' house because that was the address on my first application. I had requested updates more than once. Bellwether institutions moved slowly. Near the end of February, I arrived at the market and found a new floor map taped beside the main entrance. The spring reopening weekend was highlighted in yellow. Each vendor space had a name. Stall 12 said Hale House Goods. Wild Acre Flowers did not appear anywhere. For a few seconds, I thought I was looking at a proposal again. Then, I saw the print date. The map had been approved at the previous week's executive meeting. I took a photograph and walked to my parents' stall. Mom was arranging jars of preserves in a pyramid. Dad was trimming roots from green onions, and Evan stood behind them scrolling through his phone. "Why is his name on stall 12?" I asked. Mom did not look up. "Good morning to you too." "Why is his business on my stall?" "We were going to talk after the market." "Talk now." Dad set down the onions. Evan slid his phone into his pocket. "Mom said you were moving wholesale." I turned to him. "Moving where?" "To the farm, weddings, restaurants, subscriptions. She said the stall was holding you back." "Did I say that to you?" He looked at Mom. She finally faced me. "You have been talking about expanding your delivery work for years." "I have also renewed stall 12 every year." "You do not need a retail corner the way Evan does." "Need is not ownership." Her jaw tightened. The committee had to make a decision before the map went to print. Did the committee vote to remove an active vendor? "You were listed as non-renewing." "By whom?" "You missed the mailed response deadline." "I paid the fee online." Mom blinked once. It was the smallest break in her confidence, but I saw it. "What fee?" she asked. "The fee for stall 12. It cleared last month." Evan looked from her to me. "I was told it was available." "It is not." Mom lowered her voice. "Do not create a scene in the middle of the market." "You put his name on a public map. And we can discuss a transition like adults." "There is no transition." Customers were beginning to glance toward us. Dad came around the counter and touched my elbow. I stepped away. "Marissa," he said, "your mother thought you had let the deadline pass." I received the email. Mom said the paper form came to our house. It was not returned. A paper form is not required if payment is made online. You know how inconsistent the office is. I know what my confirmation says. Evan rubbed the back of his neck. maybe there is another stall. There is, Mom said quickly. Stall 31 is open. I laughed once because I thought she had to be joking. Stall 31 was behind the loading corridor beside the mop sink. It had no street visibility, no water access, and half the floor space. You want me to move from the east entrance to the mop sink? It is temporary. For how long? Until we see how the new concept performs. There was the truth. My business was being asked to disappear so Evans could be tested. I walked back to stall 12 and opened as usual, my hands shaking while I filled the first buckets as customers asked about the new map. I told them there had been an error. By noon, Mom had changed the word. She told people there was a family reorganization. That difference mattered. An error could be corrected. A reorganization sounded like I had agreed. I emailed every board member again. This time, I attached the payment confirmation and a photograph of the map. I asked for written confirmation that my occupancy remained active. 2 members replied that they believed I had chosen not to renew. One said Linda had reported my decision at the executive meeting and that the stall had already been allocated to Evan for the spring season. I read the sentence 3 times. Reported my decision. I had not made one. I called the cooperative office. A part-time assistant named June answered. I gave her the business name and waited while she found my file. I see your payment, she said. Do you see a surrender form? No. Do you see a request to move me? Another pause. There is a committee note that says you declined the mailed renewal and plan to focus on farm orders. Who entered it? I cannot tell from the screen. Is my agreement active? The payment is attached to stall 12. Then why is another vendor assigned there? I do not know. Neither did I, but I knew who had created the answer. I expected the paperwork to settle it. That was my first mistake. I had spent years believing that records protected the person who kept them. In business, that was usually true. A paid invoice mattered, a signed agreement mattered, a timestamp mattered. In families, facts could sit on a table while everyone discussed how inconvenient they were. Mom called that evening. You embarrass me in front of the board. I asked them to confirm my agreement. You implied I lied. You told them I was leaving. You had talked about moving more work to the farm. That is not leaving the market. You said retail exhausted you. Last August, after a wedding weekend, I also said my feet hurt. Her breath came hard through the phone. Evan has already spent money. So have I for 10 years. He ordered fixtures based on the approved map. The map was approved using a decision I never made. We were trying to keep both family businesses strong. By removing one of them. You have the farm, he has nothing. I closed my eyes. That is not my fault. The silence after that sentence felt bigger than it should have. In my family, naming the obvious was treated as cruelty when the obvious concerned Evan. Mom spoke more softly. Your brother came home because he wants to be part of this family again. I never left. No, you stayed close enough to keep score. Then she hung up. 2 days later, the lock on the shared cooler was changed. My key no longer worked. June told me the new access list showed Hale House goods assigned to the East Cooler Bay. My name had been moved to a small shelf in the rear storage room. I had 7 buckets of tulips in my truck and a restaurant delivery due by noon. I called Evan. He answered on the second ring. Hey. My cooler access is gone. Oh, Mom said the storage layout changed. Give me the new code. I do not have authority to share it. You are using the cooler I paid to wire. The cooperative owns the cooler. I bought the compressor. He went quiet. Evan, give me the code. I will call Mom. No, You call whoever changed the lock and tell them Wild Acre Flowers needs access now. He sighed, "Can you use the farm cooler today?" The farm is 40 minutes away. I am trying to help. You are standing inside the problem and describing yourself as help. He did call. 20 minutes later, June brought a temporary key. The flowers survived. The restaurant delivery was late. The chef accepted my apology, but I drove back to the farm furious with myself for sounding grateful when the market restored access it had no right to remove. That afternoon, I wrote down every fact before anyone could blur it again. It was the same method I used before wedding installations. What remained mine? The active occupancy agreement, the annual payment, the cooler compressor, the shelves, the counter, the Wild Acre name, the customer accounts, the green enamel plaque. What had changed without my approval? The public map, the committee note, the stall allocation, the cooler access, the contractor order. Who knew what? Mom knew I had not agreed to leave. Dad knew at least part of the plan. Evan had accepted the stall based on her version. The board believed I had declined renewal. Colleen had not yet returned. The list calmed me because it separated injury from proof. Then I wrote one more line. What I wanted, stall 12 restored without a family compromise attached. I did not want half the counter. I did not want a seasonal trial beside Evan. I did not want a new stall selected by the people who had taken the old one. I wanted the agreement honored. That should have been simple. Colleen returned the following Monday. She called me before the market opened. "I need you to come to the office," she said. Her office was a glass room above the teaching kitchen. From the window, we could see the east entrance, my stall, and Evan talking to a delivery driver beside 3 unopened crates. Colleen placed my payment confirmation on the desk. "Your agreement is active," she said. "Then why is he moving in?" "Because the executive committee accepted a report that you had declined renewal." "From my mother." "From the committee chair." "Same person." Colleen nodded. "There is no surrender form. There is no email from you. There is only a notation in the minutes that Linda spoke with you and confirmed you were ending retail operations." "She did not." "I believe you." Relief came so quickly that my eyes burned. I looked down until it passed. Colleen continued. "The problem is that the board also approved a provisional agreement for Hale House goods. They did that based on the representation that the stall was vacant. Can they have 2 active agreements for one stall?" "No." "So mine comes first." "Yes." The answer should have ended it. Colleen's expression said it had not. "What else?" I asked. "Your mother is arguing that the committee has authority to reassign vendors during the renovation." "Does it?" "Not without cause, notice, and a replacement space reasonably comparable in size and access. Stall 31 is half the size and next to a mop sink." "I know." "Then stop the move." "I have issued a hold until the full board meets Thursday." "A hold means what?" "No construction, no removal of your fixtures, no public opening." I looked through the glass. Evan had opened one crate. Inside were pale wooden shelves cut to fit my wall. "Does he know?" "I emailed him this morning." "He is unloading anyway." Colleen stood and walked to the window. "Then I will tell him in person." I should have felt victorious. Instead, I felt tired. A hold was not restoration. It was a pause in which my family could keep calling my ownership a conflict. At the board meeting, Mom framed the reassignment as a market strategy and described my farm as proof that I no longer needed retail space. I presented the active agreement. Evan asked for a practical compromise. The board kept the hold for 7 days while Colleen reviewed the file, and I accepted the delay because I still hoped facts could correct the situation without a formal accusation. Mom treated those 7 days as permission. The board voted to continue the hold for 7 days, while Colleen reviewed the agreements and proposed options. I had wanted them to enforce a rule. They gave us time to negotiate. That was my second mistake. I accepted the delay because I did not want to ask the board to formally discipline my mother. I told myself 7 days would allow facts to cool the situation. Mom used every one of them. By Friday morning, social media announced the Hale House Goods grand opening for the following Saturday. The post showed Evan standing in front of the east entrance with Mom and Dad. My stall appeared behind them, blurred but recognizable. The caption promised local home goods, artisan gifts, and signature seasonal florals from Wild Acre Flowers. I had not agreed to supply anything. I called Evan. "You used my business name. It is a placeholder for the launch bundles. Remove it." Mom said you always provide flowers for family events. This is not a family event, it is your business. We can settle wholesale pricing. You advertised before asking. I thought the stall issue would be resolved. It is resolved, my agreement is active. The board has not ruled yet. It does not need to invent a ruling for a contract that already exists. He exhaled. Marissa, I have 42 pre-orders. For what? Market morning gift boxes, candle, mug, tea towel, and a small bouquet. You sold 42 bouquets from my farm. I sold a product concept. With my business name. People know your flowers, that helps both of us. No, it helps you sell something you do not have. He became defensive. I was going to pay you. When? After launch. At what price? We had not finalized that. You had not begun it. I told him to remove my name and contact every pre-order customer. He said that would make the launch look unstable. I said it was unstable. An hour later, the post changed. The words Wild Acre Flowers disappeared. The photographs of my bouquets did not. I sent a written demand that he remove those too. Mom called Rosa at the farm instead of calling me. She asked how many tulips we could cut for a Saturday event. Rosa, who had worked with me for 3 seasons and feared nobody in my family, said, "None for people who call behind Marissa's back." Mom told me later that my employee had been disrespectful. I gave Rosa a raise. The middle of that week was the closest I came to walking away. A restaurant owner offered me a permanent pickup corner in his lobby. The farm shop could open 2 mornings a week, my subscription customers would follow me, and financially I could survive without stall 12. I stood in the empty packing shed after everyone left and imagined the relief of never attending another cooperative meeting. No more public maps. No more arguments beside potatoes. No more hearing my mother turn my boundaries into evidence that I had forgotten where I came from. Then a customer named Mrs. Hanley called. She had bought flowers from me since my first winter. Her husband ordered the same loose yellow bouquet for their anniversary every March. He had died the previous year, but she still came to the market on the date and bought the bouquet herself. "Are you closing?" she asked. "No. The new map says another shop is in your place." "It is an error. Your mother told someone you had moved on to bigger things." I looked at my hands. There was dirt under every nail. "I have not moved on." "I am glad," she said. "Some places matter because they stay." After we hung up, I understood what walking away would cost. Not only sales, not only the stall, it would turn Mom's lie into history. She would say I had chosen growth over the market. Evan would build his origin story in the space where mine had been erased. I could choose another future. I would not accept a false past. So I stopped negotiating. I emailed Colleen and the full board. I asked for a written determination before the advertised opening. I stated that I would not share, relocate, surrender, or pause my occupancy. I attached the agreement, payment confirmation, cooler invoice, photographs of my installed fixtures, the contractor work order, the altered access list, Evan's promotional post, and the board minutes quoting Mom's report. Then I wrote one sentence I had avoided. The committee chair knowingly represented a decision I did not make and used that representation to benefit her son. I read it twice. It was accurate. I sent it. If someone has ever called your boundary selfish because their plan depended on you having none, you know why pressing send felt harder than rebuilding the stall ever had. The response came the next morning. Colleen confirmed that the cooperative would issue a determination by Friday afternoon. Until then, the hold remained. No vendor could occupy stall 12 without my written consent. No one could remove my fixtures, use my storage allocation, or advertise the stall as transferred. At noon, Dad called and asked whether he could come by. He arrived without coffee this time. He carried a large brown envelope. I found this in the committee cabinet, he said. Inside was the paper renewal notice that had been mailed to my parents' house. My name and farm address were printed on the front. The envelope had been opened. The form inside was blank except for a note across the top in Mom's handwriting. The note read, Marissa moving to wholesale. Declined, Linda Hale. There was no signature from me, no date, no record of a conversation, just my mother's conclusion written where my decision should have been. Dad sat on an overturned bucket. I should have stopped her, he said. Why didn't you? She said you had talked about leaving. You knew she had not asked me. He nodded. Did Evan know? Not at first. At first. Dad looked toward the open packing shed door. Wind moved through the field, pressing the first flower rows in one direction. He asked after the map went up, Dad said. Your mother told him it was settled. I told him there was a problem with the payment, but by then he had ordered the displays. So he knew before he advertised the opening. Yes. The truth changed shape again. Evan had begun as the beneficiary of a lie. Then he had chosen to keep benefiting after he knew the lie was not settled. Dad rubbed both hands over his face. Your mother thinks if the opening fails, Evan will leave Bellwether again. That is his decision. She wants both children close. She has a strange way of showing it. She believes you will always be here. I looked around the packing shed. The cooler hummed. Clean buckets dried upside down. Order cards covered the board beside the sink. Everything in the room existed because I had stayed, worked, and kept showing up after my family stopped seeing effort as something that could be used up. That is the problem, I said. She treats my staying like permission. Dad's eyes filled, but he did not ask me to comfort him. That was new. He pushed the envelope toward me. Use it. Do you understand what happens if I do? The board will know she wrote it. They may remove her as chair. I know. Evan may lose the opening. I know. I waited for the part where he asked me to protect them anyway. It did not come. Dad stood. I am sorry, Mari. For what? For every time I called it peace when you were the only person being asked to give something up. He left before I could answer. I scanned the form and emailed it to Colleen. 2 hours later, Mom texted me. Mom's text read, "Come to the market. We need to finalize Saturday." I almost ignored her, but I needed to see what she had done to the stall. I drove into town with the active agreement and the opened renewal form in my bag. The market hall was closed to customers on Thursdays. Sunlight from the east entrance crossed the floor in long gold bars. Stall 12 looked wrong from 20 feet away. My buckets were stacked beside the freight door. The loose shelves I had built were gone. Freestanding dark green panels covered the white walls. Evan's logo hung from the oak post on 2 hooks, hiding the holes where my plaque had been. Mom stood behind my counter as if she had always belonged there. Evan was opening boxes of candles. Dad was nowhere in sight. "What happened to my shelves?" I asked. "They are in storage," Mom said. "The hold says nothing can be removed." "They were loose fixtures." "They were mine." "They are safe." "Put them back." Evan closed the box. "We can restore everything if the board rules against us." "The board is not deciding who deserves the stall. It is confirming the agreement you already know exists." Mom placed a cream-colored order sheet on the counter and smoothed it with both palms. "We have less than 2 days," she said. "The chamber is bringing a ribbon. The newspaper is sending a photographer. There are 42 prepaid boxes and another 30 expected for walk-in sales." I looked at the sheet. 80 hand-tied bouquets, 12 buckets of greenery, 1 flower arch for the east entrance, delivery before sunrise, setup included. The price line was blank. "Leave it open," Mom said. "We will settle everything after the launch." I looked behind her at Evan's logo, covering my sign holes. "You removed my business from the stall, sold my flowers without asking, and now you want me to decorate the opening." "No one removed your business. We are creating a broader platform." "Where is my plaque?" Mom's eyes moved toward the supply closet. I walked around the counter. She stepped into my path. "Do not turn this into theater. You invited a newspaper." Evan said the plaque is wrapped up. It was not damaged. I opened the closet. My green enamel sign leaned behind a stack of folding chairs, wrapped in one of my old market aprons. A fresh chip showed at the lower corner where someone had pried it from the post. I lifted it carefully. Mom followed me. We were going to give it back. "It should never have been removed." "It is a sign. It is my property. It is also a reminder that you started here, because this family gave you room." I turned around. The plaque felt heavier than it ever had on the post. "The cooperative gave me a bad stall. I repaired it. Customers gave me business. You gave me 6 feet beside the onions and kept the sales in your register." Her face hardened. "You have rewritten your entire childhood to make us villains." "No, I have finally separated what you gave from what you claimed." Evan moved closer. "Can we please solve the launch first? I will pay for the flowers." "No." "Name a fair price." "No." "You supply restaurants that call with less notice than this. They have accounts, they ask, they pay deposits, they do not sell my product before contacting me." He looked at the pre-order list. "If there are no flowers, I have to refund part of every box." "Yes." "That could wipe out the launch margin. That is a consequence of selling inventory you did not own." Mom tapped the order sheet. "Your brother made one assumption based on what he was told. He kept advertising after he knew there was a dispute. Because he trusted his mother. And I am supposed to pay for that trust with flowers and a stall." She lowered her voice. "You are supposed to remember that one day you may need family too." The threat was wrapped so neatly that another version of me might have called it advice. I placed the opened renewal form beside her order sheet. Her handwriting faced up. Dad had not warned her. For the first time since I entered, she stopped controlling her expression. "Where did you get that?" "The committee cabinet." She looked at Evan. He read the note without touching the paper. Mom recovered quickly. "That was an administrative notation. It says I declined. You had given every indication that you were moving away from retail. You never asked me. I made the best decision for the market with the information I had. You made the best decision for Evan with a sentence you wrote for me." Evan stared at her. "You said she told you." "She did, in every practical sense." "No," I said, "I did not." Mom ignored me and addressed him. "Marissa had the farm, the contracts, the weddings. You needed a place to begin." Evan's face went pale. Did she ever say I could have the stall? Mom lifted her chin. She did not say she wanted to keep it. I paid the renewal, I said. You paid online without discussing the larger plan. My contract does not require a family meeting. Mom picked up the order sheet and held it toward me. Fine, fight about the space with the board, but do not punish 42 customers and your brother's future over flowers. Bring the bouquets Saturday. We will display both names until this is resolved. There was the final compromise. She would let my name reappear on my own stall if I supplied the product that made his opening possible. I folded the order sheet once and put it in my bag. Evan's shoulders relaxed. He thought I had accepted. Then I lifted my plaque. There will be no flower order, I said. There will be no shared display. Tomorrow the board will confirm my agreement. Saturday I will open stall 12 as Wild Acre Flowers. Mom stepped closer, and if they do not, then I will use every appeal in the agreement and every document in this bag. I will not disappear quietly enough to make your story true. I carried the plaque out of the market. The board's determination arrived Friday at 3:17 in the afternoon. I remember the exact time because I was standing in the packing shed staring at my phone while rain struck the metal roof. The letter was 4 pages. The important part fit in one paragraph. My occupancy agreement for stall 12 remained valid. The provisional allocation to Hale House Goods had been issued without a valid vacancy and was rescinded. The executive committee had exceeded its authority by relying on an unsigned notation from its chair, instead of obtaining written confirmation from the vendor. The hold became a restoration order. My access was to be returned immediately. My fixtures were to be replaced before opening. No other business could operate from stall 12 without my written consent. The board also suspended Mom from vendor allocation decisions, pending a governance review. I read the paragraph aloud to Rosa. She smiled. So what are we cutting? Everything ready. We worked until dark. Tulips, daffodils, flowering branches, and the first sweet peas from the tunnel. We did not make 80 gift box bouquets. We made the normal Saturday inventory for Wild Acre Flowers. I slept badly and woke before the alarm. At 4:30 Saturday morning, Rosa and I loaded the van. The green plaque lay on the passenger seat wrapped in a clean towel. Beside it was a cordless drill, the restoration letter, and the cream order sheet Mom had tried to leave without a price. Rain had stopped, the streets shone under the lamps. We reached the market at 5:40. The east entrance was already unlocked. That should not have happened. Inside, every light was on. Evan's dark green panels stood around stall 12. Boxes covered my counter. Candles filled the shelves. A ribbon stretched across the east entrance, and a sign on an easel announced the grand opening of Hale House Goods at 8. Mom stood on a ladder, tying greenery around the arch. Not my greenery. Grocery store eucalyptus and artificial vines. She had found a substitute for appearance, if not for the flowers she had promised. Evan was arranging mugs. Dad stood near the produce stall with his coat still on. I carried the plaque in one hand and the restoration letter in the other. Mom climbed down. "You are early," she said. "This is my opening time. We are finishing the event setup. The restoration order says his inventory cannot occupy this stall. The order came after business hours. We could not cancel everything overnight. You had a week. We had commitments. So do I." Rosa entered behind me pushing the first cart of flower buckets. The wheels rattled across the old floor. Evan watched the color move toward the stall, and for a second, longing crossed his face. He could see exactly what the bouquets would have done for his display. He said, "Can we keep one side until the ribbon cutting?" "No." Mom looked toward the main aisle. "People will be here soon." "Yes." You are going to make your brother carry boxes past them. He brought the boxes into an occupied stall. Dad stepped forward. Linda, the board was clear. She turned on him. Do not start. I should have started years ago. The word surprised all of us. Mom stared at him. You gave her that form. I gave her her own mail. You went through committee records. I opened the cabinet I built. This is not about carpentry, Dale. No, it is about you writing our daughter's decision because you thought she would adjust. His voice shook, but he did not lower it. Mom looked around, as if the building itself had betrayed her. At 6:10, Colleen arrived with 2 board members. She stopped inside the east entrance and took in the ribbon, the boxes, the panels, and my flowers waiting in the aisle. Why is Hale House Goods still in stall 12? She asked. Mom walked toward her. We are requesting a one-morning accommodation to protect the market from a public embarrassment. The board rescinded the allocation. The chamber has promoted this opening. The chamber did that based on information your committee supplied. We can resolve the occupancy after the event. Colleen looked at me. Do you consent to temporary shared use? No. One word, no explanation. The agreement did not require me to make my boundary sound generous. Colleen turned to Evan. Your inventory has to be removed before the doors open. I can offer you a temporary table in the covered courtyard today. It is not a vendor assignment. It is a one-day accommodation for pre-order pickup only. Evan looked at the ribbon, then at the rain-dark courtyard beyond the glass. Can the ribbon cutting move outside? Mom asked. The chamber can decide whether it still wants one, Colleen said. The market will not present it as a permanent opening. Mom's face flushed. This is retaliation. One of the board members answered. It is enforcement of the agreement. Based on my daughter's accusations. Based on your written notation and the absence of her consent. The newspaper photographer arrived while they were speaking. He carried 2 cameras and wore a bright blue rain jacket. Behind him came a woman from the chamber with a ceremonial pair of scissors in a velvet case. Mom saw them and changed. Her shoulders lowered. Her voice softened. She became the public version of Linda Hale, the woman who could turn control into concern before anyone noticed the movement. There has been a last-minute family misunderstanding, she told the chamber representative. We are adjusting the layout, but the collaborative opening can still proceed. I stepped beside Colleen. It is not collaborative, I said. The photographer lowered one camera. Mom smiled without looking at me. Marissa is understandably protective of the flower stall she developed within our family market tradition. Wild Acre Flowers is an independent vendor, I said. My active space was reassigned without my consent. The board restored it yesterday. The chamber representative looked at Colleen. That is accurate, Colleen said. Mom's smile disappeared. You did not have to say that in front of guests, she told me. You brought guests before you had permission. Evan came around the counter holding one of his gift boxes. Through the clear lid, I could see a candle, a mug, and an empty paper sleeve printed with the words seasonal flowers. I have customers arriving for these, he said. I looked at the empty sleeve. So tell them the flowers were advertised without a supplier. Mom said, Marissa, enough. Give him the bouquets you brought. He can pay retail. Rose's hands tightened on the cart handle. I set the cream order sheet on my counter. The blank price line faced up. These flowers are for my customers, I said. Your order was never accepted. They are already cut. For Wild Acre. You would rather let your brother's opening collapse than share one morning. I picked up the green plaque. You still think this is one morning. It is 10 years. Mom laughed sharply. 10 years in a space your family helped you get. The cooperative approved me. I paid for it. I repaired it. I kept it active. You chaired a committee. That did not make every stall yours. I was trying to give Evan a start. You tried to give him mine. He is your brother. And I am your daughter's. You have more than he does. Because I built more than he did. Evan flinched. I regretted the cruelty in the sentence, but not the truth beneath it. I turned to him. You can build something, I said, but you cannot begin by pretending my finished work is your empty space. He looked at the opened renewal form lying beside the order sheet. I had brought it too. I did not know at first, he said. I know. I spent everything on this launch. And when you did know. His eyes moved toward Mom. She answered for him. He trusted that the adults involved would solve it. We are all adults, I said. That landed where it needed to. Evan set the gift box down. He looked around the stall, not like an owner now, but like a designer finally seeing what had been erased to make his rendering clean. The patched counter, the cooler outlet, the watermarks near the freight door. Small screw holes from displays I had changed over the years. He reached up and lifted his logo from the hooks. Mom grabbed his wrist. What are you doing? I'm moving. You cannot carry all of this outside. Then help me. The press is here. He looked at her hand until she released him. For the next 40 minutes, Evan, Dad, Colleen, and one board member carried Hale House inventory to the covered courtyard. Mom did not lift a box. She stood beside the ribbon with her arms folded while the photographer took no pictures. I could have watched. Instead, Rosa and I restored the stall. My shelves came out of storage with scratches along one side. We set them against the wall. We moved the buckets into their usual rows. We wiped the counter. I removed the hooks that had held Evan's logo and found the original screw holes beneath them. At 7:12, I placed the green enamel plaque against the oak post. The chipped corner caught the light. Dad came over holding the drill. May I? He asked. For years, he had fixed things after Mom made decisions. This time, I needed the action to be mine. I have it, I said. He handed me the drill. Mom watched from the aisle. I drove the first screw through the upper hole, then the second. The plaque settled flat against the post, cream letters above the buckets, my name where it had always been. The plaque read, Wild Acre Flowers, Marissa Hale, stall 12. Mom walked toward me. You made your point, she said. No, I restored my business. You humiliated this family over a sign and a corner. I looked past her at Evan carrying his last crate into the courtyard. The ceremonial ribbon lay coiled on the floor. Customers were beginning to gather outside the glass doors. You did not give Evan my stall, I said. You promised him something that was never yours. She opened her mouth, but I was not finished. You counted on me to adjust because I always had. You counted on Dad to stay quiet because he always had. You counted on Evan to accept the story because it benefited him. That is not a misunderstanding. It is a system. Her face changed at the word system. A misunderstanding could be forgiven without change. A system required someone to stop participating. What do you want from me? She asked. The question sounded sincere for the first time, mostly because she had run out of answers. I want you out of my contracts, my customer relationships, my storage access, and every committee decision involving my business. You want to punish me. I want the boundary your choices made necessary. Colleen stepped closer. The board's interim order already removes Linda from allocation matters. We will address the remaining governance issues at the next meeting. Mom looked at her, then at Dad. He did not rescue her. The market bell rang at 7:30. Colleen unlocked the main doors. Customers entered under an arch of grocery store greenery that led to a flower stall Mom had tried to remove. The image was almost funny. Mrs. Hanley was among the first people inside. She wore a yellow raincoat and walked directly to my counter. I heard there was an error, she said. There was. Is it fixed? I looked at the plaque. Yes. She chose a loose bouquet of yellow tulips and white daffodils. While I wrapped it, the chamber representative carried the velvet case to the courtyard. There was no ribbon cutting. Evan used the folding table for pre-order pickup and refunded the flower portion of every box. Some customers stayed and bought his candles anyway. Others asked questions he had to answer himself. That was not failure. It was a beginning without borrowed ground. At 9, Mom left the market. Dad remained at the produce stall. He did not come ask me to speak to her. For the first Saturday in years, my family's silence felt like room. The governance review lasted 3 weeks. The board removed Mom as executive chair for the rest of the year. She could keep selling produce, but she no longer had access to vendor records, renewal mail, keys, storage assignments, or placement decisions. The cooperative added a rule requiring written consent before any vendor could be marked non-renewing. Mom called the rule an overreaction. I called it a door with a lock. The cooperative reimbursed me for the damaged shelf and replaced the cooler lock. Evan paid for the photographs he had used in his launch post after Colleen told him the market would not accept another application until the dispute was settled. He did not get stall 12. By summer, Evan was selling online from a small studio above the hardware store. He paid for the photographs he had used and sent a written apology that admitted he kept benefiting after he knew the stall was disputed. I did not bring him into my business, but I told him he could apply for a wholesale account like any other retailer. Dad stopped carrying Mom's messages and began taking responsibility for his silence. Mom and I spoke only when market business required it. The distance was not revenge. It was the first arrangement that did not depend on me surrendering something. The green plaque still hangs on the oak post at stall 12. I could have repaired the chip in the lower corner. Arthur's old sign shop offered to match the enamel exactly. I left it. The chip reminds me that a boundary can be damaged without becoming unclear. It also reminds me that being dependable does not make me available for removal. The people who love your strength do not use it as proof that taking from you is harmless. Every Saturday, I arrive before dawn. I unlock my cooler with a key issued in my name. I fill the stall with whatever survived rain, wind, heat, and my own imperfect planning. Then the market doors open, and people follow the color to the east entrance. They do not see a family favor. They see Wild Acre Flowers. And when someone asks how long I have been in that corner, I tell them the truth. Long enough to know the difference between being given a place and earning the right to keep it. What boundary would you have set when the map first changed? Whatever your answer is, remember this. Keeping the peace is not peaceful when your disappearance is the price.